America in the Roaring '20s. There was Prohibition. There was baseball. And there was Babe Ruth. Kelly McGillis and John Goodman as the Babe.
Hey, you're a good-looking dame.
And you're quite the slugger.
The story of baseball's troubled genius.
You can't tell me what to do, Dad.
You're at it again.
An Arthur Hiller motion picture, The Babe, tomorrow at 10 on BBC2.
Take one thing you pick up and one place where you can get picked up. Add one switchboard operator.
This is the switchboard here. Can I help you?
And one smooth operator. Whip them together with something saucy. And what have you got?
Coq au vin.
Not quite, Lloyd.
Don't you give me any fat lip.
It's the menu for Wednesday evening on BBC2. It's for you and off your trolley, a feast of fun on the phone and up the aisle. First course will be served Wednesday at 8.
Oprah introduces a new generation of comedians in half an hour here on BBC2 after studio debate with Esther.
Members of your family were to join one of these new religious groups, a cult, would you be terrified for them? Would you be afraid that they might die in a mass suicide, like the members of the cult you remember who killed themselves here in Switzerland? Or else in a blazing shootout, like the cult members in Waco in Texas? Are all cults that dangerous, or are some just harmless religious groups? Sylvia Padilla and her daughter Victoria were once members of a cult called the Children of God. They were the cult who used to recruit new members by what they called flirty fishing, but which actually meant sleeping with them. Sylvia, did you have to do that?
Yes, I did.
Was it difficult?
Very difficult.
And how do you feel about yourself having done that now?
It was actually very humiliating to do that. Now, I look back and I wonder however I could have done such a thing.
I was going to ask you, how do you think you were made to do that?
We were gradually led up through the teachings of the leader of the group, and he used scriptures to back up everything. And he likened us to, like the temple, priestesses of the old times.
So he managed to persuade you that what you were doing was not prostitution, but was somehow holy?
Yes, it was like, would you give anything to save a soul, even your body?
And you did. What about Victoria? Did you have a similar experience?
Well, I didn't have to do flirty fishing as such, but I was exposed to a lot of quite explicit material as I was growing up.
Sexual material?
Yes, it was more like drawings and things from comic books that were supposed to be for children, but a lot of the drawings were quite explicit.
How did you break free, you two?
We broke away. The thing that really made me rebel against the teachings was when one of my daughters was a full-time member and we'd been demoted to part-time status, and we were not allowed to visit with her without a shepherd or leader monitoring our conversation.
Because they were frightened, because they knew that they were losing their hold on you?
They're losing their hold on my daughter more than on us. Yes.
And that really got to you? The fact
It was the height of control. Because I was a Christian and it was supposed to be a Christian group, I just could not conceive that such a policy could be originated with the Spirit of God.
Now, Gideon and Rachel Scott, you're members of that cult. How can you defend that sort of thing?
Well, first of all, I'd like to object to the word cult. We don't consider ourselves a cult because that is a pejorative term and it implies brainwashing. We do not believe in brainwashing, which is not a scientific fact.
But you recognise what have been described to you, this awful sexual degradation and taking money and exercising complete control. Isn't that brainwashing?
No, it certainly isn't. When Sylvia joined this group, she joined because she wanted to tell other people about Jesus, and that's the reason I joined this group as well.
And you've done this flirty fishing?
I don't discuss my personal sex life on television, but I would say this, that I believe that it was a a worthwhile ministry, and it did reach people that otherwise would not have been reached. This was stopped in 1987.
Now, I've got some pictures here. Victoria's talked about very explicit pictorial material. I wouldn't show it, obviously, so that the cameras can see it too clearly, because this really depicts child abuse, child sexual abuse. Gideon, how can anyone defend this in a cult?
Well, I can't see what you're showing there.
I'm happy
But
to
I
show
can
you.
tell you this, that I have been in our group for 23 years. I have never once ever seen or experienced child abuse in our group. Now, I will also say that 10, 15 years ago, we had a much more liberal view on human sexuality than we do now, as I think society at large did.
This is liberal, is it? That
Yes.
what they're doing to children? Yes? Is this familiar to you?
Yes, the reason why they have made statements, they don't do this anymore, is because it could be injurious to the group because of the publicity and the authorities.
So, yes.
She describing actually exactly what is happening with the group that I was part of. It was called the London Church of Christ.
Now, they're a different cult, are they?
They are different cult, but the sex, the money, the control is literally the same, if not worse. The level of control, you see the word sex used as a means of controlling the individual. Have you lost it after this? Have you done this? Have you done that? You need to give your 10% of your income, and you end up lose the ability to make decisions for yourself.
It does seem very extraordinary, looking at people like this. Yes, Rachel.
I would like to say that it is perfectly scriptural to give 10% of your income. This is what the Bible says to do. And what he is describing is a degree of dedication
This is
which is
if you are able.
But you see, the problem is that Rachel and Gideon clearly don't think there's anything wrong in what Sylvia's described. You don't think there's anything wrong in flirty fishing. You don't think there's anything wrong in taking money from the supporters.
I believe that God expects people who want to be his disciples to give everything they have. That's what the Bible says.
Yes,
if you want to be a disciple, that's what the Bible says. We don't set the rules. God sets the rules in his holy scriptures, and that's what he asks.
But through your leader your leader is exercising a very odd kind of control over you, isn't he?
I don't think so. I've never met him. I've never met him. I have, you know, we get this thing. We're going to hear the argument that cults, by definition, all use mind control. The reason for this is to disqualify us because of personal choices that we have made. Now, I made a choice to do this.
You made a choice to do this.
That's right.
Let me
Very
ask
willingly.
You, but Gideon, take yourself back.
Yes.
Before you joined this cult, suppose you heard somebody telling you you had to go to bed with somebody in order to convert them to the religion. You had to give your money. You would have thought that madness, wouldn't you?
As a 19-year-old hippie, I'd have probably thought it was quite a good idea, to be honest.
So maybe you have to be psychologically attuned
That is absolute nonsense. And quite frankly, the word you saying, people join of their own will, is absolutely have no validity whatsoever. People are in the street, they do not decide one day, I should go and join this group. Simply, you are picked up in the middle of the road, whether you are a student, where you're working, whatever you're doing, you are asked, would you like to come to Bible talk, to a cup of tea, to an evening dinner? And then the pressure started exercise time and time. Within 6 days, he or she is member of it.
Hold on a second, because you're sitting next to a psychiatrist. That doesn't seem likely to me. Can you explain, you're just walking down the road, someone offers you a cup of tea and you end up being a prostitute?
Well, they involve you in something, in false love, in something called love bombing.
What's
they
love
say
bombing?
how attractive you are and how they remind you of somebody that they really liked. And they say, oh, you're so interesting, do come and talk to us. I'm sure you want to come to Jesus. And then...
Are these a particular kind of person? Are they lonely people? Are there people who are insecure? Or can it work with anyone?
Well, sometimes they're just people who've come to a new town and are on their own. Sometimes they're people who failed exams. Sometimes they're people who are temporarily disappointed. Sometimes they're people who are looking for a religious way out.
Let me just ask you, madam, yes?
I was in the family for 17 years.
This same cult?
Yes, it's same group.
You did all this flirty fishing and all this?
I have 5 kids. They were all born in the family. None of them have been abused. They've never been without clothing or food. And
Did you answer my question? I didn't.
Well,
did
I'm
you?
just I'll
Did
answer.
you flirty fish?
I don't discuss my private life on TV.
So the word no would not be accurate.
But
the word yes might be.
What I'm trying to say is that I joined of my own free will and I left of my own free will. I wasn't
Why did you leave?
abused, or I just needed to go slower. My health wasn't so good.
Well, I can imagine it's quite tiring. Yes, sir.
I find this very difficult because if I look at the literature that the group has presented themselves, it says it's okay to lie if it helps the group.
So they can say anything here tonight and it will be...
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there is a thing that was published in '89 to disciples that says quite clearly it's okay to lie and gives a lot of biblical examples of why lying is okay.
Do you see, Gideon, what it is? Yes.
Would you like to answer this, or shall I?
Go ahead.
We do not believe it is right to lie. We do not. What we do believe, and if I can finish this, is I personally believe that if it came down to saving somebody's life or telling a lie, I would tell a lie. And I think everybody in this audience would do it.
Hold on,
and those are about the only circumstances where I would do that.
What about saving someone's soul?
Saving someone's soul doesn't need lies. That just needs the love of Jesus.
You were going to say, madam.
The reason I was in this family was because I was putting my family responsibilities high on the list, because I believe the family was the best place to raise a family.
Doesn't sound like it.
Well, it doesn't sound like it because people like this psychiatrist you see, like the anti-cult movement, have spread a hysterical hatred which is based on Nazi ideas, really.
Nazi ideas.
Nazi ideas at the origin of this.
You're denying this?
Please let me finish this.
Do you recognize this?
Let me finish it. No, I don't recognize this, but let me please finish this.
Yes.
The origin of this anti-cult movement is a series of psychiatrist Nazis who themselves decided, like in the German Nazi, in Nazi Germany.
Hold on.
Please let me finish.
Now, this gentleman has been described. Wait a minute.
I have never, ever been part of the Nazi party, to start with. Okay? Second, let me tell you, I am not a psychiatrist, to start. Second.
No, but you're sitting next to one. It might brush off.
Honestly, and I have nothing against you or anybody else personally. One thing I'm saying, I'm describing what happened, and I'm not here to earn extra point on the group or on the cult. I'm simply presenting what happened in a period of 7 years.
When you did things that you are now ashamed of.
Absolutely, I am ashamed of each and every action I have done.
But at the time you were convinced it was the work of God, and that's why you did it.
Nothing will convince me anything wrong.
Please, can I say it's the first time I've ever been called a hysterical psychiatrist. The reason why I see people is because I'm rung up by a relative who says that my child in a cult or who's just come out of a cult is so ill that they need admission to a mental hospital, or they have just made a suicidal attempt. Now, am I hysterical when I react to that and am prepared to break the rules and come on your program to say I think it's a bad thing?
There's a gentleman here with his hand up. Excuse me.
The reason I'm against cults is because my daughter has been a member of the Birmingham Church of Christ now for just over 12 months, and I'm upset that they use too strict a religious doctrine.
But there are lots of strict religions.
Yes, but they go over the top. They must toe the party line.
And what
they
is
must
the
do
party
exactly
line?
what they're told to do. They must go out doing blitzing in the streets, getting 10 evangelists a day. It doesn't leave them any other time to do anything else in their life, only following the religious order that they're in.
So what else should she be doing?
She should be getting on with her studies to prepare her for the rest of her life.
So it's actually spoiling her studies?
It certainly is spoiling her studies, yes.
And what about her other friends? Has she still got her other friends outside the religion?
She's got no friends outside the religion now because they've all gone off in their other way of life.
Has it made her happy?
She says it has, but in my opinion, it definitely has not, no.
Why do you come to that view?
Well, because I've seen such a change in her that it's unbelievable. She went from a really bubbly, vibrant person to almost like a zombie at first. She is slightly getting a bit better than that now. But they've taken her away from our family, and now they say that she's with her new family now.
I think this is what people are so worried about. Yes, Sylvia.
I'd just like to clarify a point. The two ladies who spoke over there, they're part-time members of the family still. They said they're ex-members, but they're actually part-time
So they are still members
yes,
of it?
part-time members.
So
yes.
from your point of view, they're still, as it were, brainwashed?
They're brainwashed. This brainwashing is absolutely amazing. I'm wondering the government isn't knocking at our door trying to get the secret of it.
Am I
It's
using the
absolute
wrong term
rubbish.
here?
Esther,
Just one moment.
Well, I think that the convictions which are put into them are irrational and unshakable, and you can still hold on to them even if you are living at home.
So what does a family, like a family, not the family, like the gentleman who's so worried for his daughter, what can they do?
Well, it's a story I've been told many, many times, about 200 times so far. And what they can do is to not allow the family ties to be loosed. They must continue to accept the person. They must find out as much as they can about what the belief system is, and they must hold hard to their own beliefs and put them to their daughter in a sensible way.
Will people in time come round, or may they be lost forever?
Well, they do, but this particular cult, they come out very, very damaged.
You're talking about a different cult, this one?
I'm talking about the cult that the gentleman's daughter has been in.
Oh, really?
And the people I've seen who've come out of that have been unable to continue their studies and have found it very, very difficult to settle in Norman society for a very long time, because they have become dissociated and stressed. They have become used to being guided by their discipler, by being told what to do at every point, told who their boyfriend shall be, who they shall go out with, where they shall meet their parents. And they've lost the capacity to make up their minds.
Dr. Palmer, this is a very, very worrying picture that's being painted here. Should we all be concerned about it?
I think we should indeed be concerned, and I'm sure that what Dr. Tilden is saying is completely accurate. There's only one problem with what she says, which is the ideas that have been put into their minds, the assumption that something is being done to the people who decide, no matter how perversely you may think, decide to join a group. You would find, I think, that a very similar experience would be had by a girl who decided to go and be a nun. And after all, there are a lot of people who have decided to give their life to Christ and have gone into a nunnery. And, you know, there are plenty of books that girls have written, women have written when they've come out. If you live under this kind of strict religious regime, no matter what it is, it does indeed entirely shape the way you see the world, the way you see yourself.
But there is a difference. There is a difference.
But what's the difference?
Well, the difference is that what we've heard about is degrading, surely.
I think there's a very big difference. The difference is if you become a nun, you know exactly what you're getting into. One of the problems with the groups that we're talking about, very often you do not know what you're getting into.
Because they start off gently.
That's right. Absolutely. And very often you don't know how to identify them. This particular group goes on the streets, gives nice pretty posters out with just a box number on it.
But we do need to get a sense of proportion into this. I mean, we're in danger of having a very polarized discussion. The fact of the matter is that the majority of people who come into contact with cults or new religious movements don't join. The small number that do join, many of them, over half, will leave of their own accord within a very short period of time.
What do you base that on? Sorry, what do you base that evidence on?
There are plenty of, there's Barker's study of the making of the Mooney, for instance.
So that's one group.
There are plenty of studies which have been made.
Which other studies?
Terms like mind control.
Can I just ask you a question? Because nobody is particularly worried about people that come in contact with cults or religious groups, look at them, think this is not for me and go away.
That's
What we're worried about, it may be the minority, but we're worried about those families who watch relatives of theirs being taken over, or people like Sylvia and Victoria who watch their lives being wrecked, or the people who go to the doctor for psychiatric help.
No one would want to deny that religious cults cause real problems to real people, and people do suffer from them. But we must have a sense of proportion. I think there's a danger when we have discussions about cults of creating a kind of fear of cults, which is a bit like the fear of crime. People suffer from a fear of being burgled, a fear of being mugged, far out of proportion.
But some people are. Can I just ask Gideon?
Yes.
Perhaps one of the worrying things, Gideon, from my point of view, and I speak as a consumer journalist, there was a time when salesmen selling something very dodgy could pretend to be consultants, could pretend to be doing surveys, and only wait until they'd really got into someone's house and brainwashed them and got them to signing up that they revealed that they were really selling something that somebody couldn't afford. If you'll forgive the analogy, standing in the street handing out leaflets with little pictures on that end up with pictures like this of abused children.
Yeah.
Seems to me the same process. Shouldn't you be honest from the beginning?
I can tell you my own personal experience. When I met the Children of God, as it then was, within half an hour of meeting them, and I was already a Christian, although very lapsed, within half an hour from the Bible, I was shown the standards of discipleship, of forsaking all, of giving everything I had.
Including sex, including money.
There was no sex considered. That was one of the things I was expected to give up. And I was thrilled at the level of commitment required from me. I thought, here are people who are willing to give everything for an ideal. That's thrilling for a young person. And I am glad that I joined. I'm glad that my wife and I have been able to bring up our 11 children and our grandchildren in this group.
It's a very exhausting lifestyle.
I am thrilled, and
but
so
these
is my
two
wife.
ladies are not
They
thrilled.
have had a different experience to us.
May I just move the discussion on to one of the biggest cults or religious groups in the world, one of the most popular and fast-growing ones, and that's Scientology. Here in Britain, Scientologists hand out leaflets in the street, often not using the word Scientology, do they? What do they do? When they hand leaflets out, how is it described to people?
Usually as Scientology or as Dianetics, which is a separate subject. First of all, let me join Rachel in objecting to the use of the word cult. You know, we don't like the word because it's part of the problem that we're faced with here. Most of the people that are speaking in opposition to cults are people that I've been with on other radio programs. They're professional people that speak out against cults, and it's a little bit like, let me finish, because it's a little bit like...
When you say professional...
Well, I don't mean professional, but they run around attacking people in different religious movements, and their position is a little bit like an arms manufacturer. They couldn't exist, their job wouldn't exist if there wasn't a controversy.
Now, hold on a second. Would your job exist without a controversy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can assure you, my job's still on. The simple one things I learned about a bicycle cross the road with a huge bomb there, I will not sleep before I inform the whole entire universe that there is a disaster waiting to happen.
Can I ask, are you a professional? Are you attacking cults?
I'm not a professional cult attacker, no. I'm just a very, very worried father.
You see, yes.
Let me clarify, because one of the dangers that we run into is that the issue is a controversial issue, and obviously it's a very emotional one. And one of the dangers is that things get polarized into this side and that side. And the thing that I would encourage is any family members that are watching the program or in the audience, if you feel there's a difficulty with a member of a new religion, one of your family members is a member, why not talk to that family member, learn a bit about what they're doing, and get into some communication. The idea that there's our side and your side, and we have to have some kind of conflict going, is what causes the problem.
Did that work with you? You were once a Scientologist, were you?
That's right. I was a Scientologist. When you're in Scientology, you're taught all this stuff, and it starts to change you. And Scientology play on the fact that the changing is for good. Your family don't understand it, so they start reacting to it.
How did you change when you were a Scientologist?
I started changing I run a small business, and I had accumulated a fair sum of money through it, and I'd also inherited a small sum of money, and I was very careful with money. Through 2 months' involvement with Scientology, I actually gave them just over £21,000.
How did they persuade you to do that?
All sorts. They've got a very, very deceptive philosophy that you can't argue with. For instance, the sort of thing that would happen I would go along with these self-improvement exercises. One was which you would actually stare into somebody's eyes for up to an hour at a time, and you'd feel great at the end of it. And I was taken upstairs into an office.
Sounds like hypnosis.
Well, I guess it's bordering on it, you know. I was taken upstairs into an office where then I was sat down in front of somebody, and they justified out to me buying more courses. And they got me to a stage where I gave them my Building Society book. This is the same thing that this guy's talking about. I gave them my Building Society book, and they got me to sign pieces of paper with my signature so they could go and take out as much money as they wanted to.
Now, if this were a double glazing salesman, Peter, this would be unfair contract terms, and he'd be done for it in court.
If you entered into an unfair agreement, you do have a cooling off period, whereas with Scientologists you don't. My son was actually accompanied to a building society. He had no cooling off period at all, and they emptied his bank account with him.
Let's take one thing at a time.
And when you say that families should actually have contact with members of the cult. You can't, because your child is told that your families are your enemies.
Well, you must be talking about some other religion, because
well, I'm
nothing
talking
like
about
that,
Church of Scientology,
nothing like that
and
would
that
ever
is
be said
my
in the
own
Church of
personal.
Scientology.
Well, I'm sorry, it was,
No.
and he was told how to handle his parents.
No.
He was given a list of questions they might ask and answers to it, and every time he had an argument with us, he rushed to the phone and he was told how to handle it.
It's a familiar story, though. You're saying
Right.
it doesn't happen.
No, I can imagine if he was a member of the Church of Scientology, if he wanted to be a member, you know...
He was a member.
If he was a member...
I was quiet while you talked. Like, let me just answer. That's the idea of this. If he wanted to be a member of the Church of Scientology, there is some freedom in his decision to be a member. You know, we do live in a society where people have the freedom to choose their own religious beliefs. If there was a situation where the family didn't understand or disagreed, well, then I can understand there being some concern, and I'm not saying you're professional anti-cult
But
people.
£22,000 is a heck of a lot to take from a young person, isn't it?
21,000, I believe it was.
21, 22?
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody said it was taken. I mean, the gentleman here said he gave them the 21,000.
He stared into someone's eyes for an hour and then was led upstairs
Well, again,
and signed some papers.
I've been a Scientologist for 17 years. I've been a Scientologist in countries all over the world. I've never stared into somebody's eyes for an hour.
Staring into mine, I'm getting nervous. So you were going to say?
Well, I'm a member of the family, and...
Now, hold on. Are we saying the family, the flirty...
The family, the one and only.
The flirty fishing.
The formerly flirty fishing family. There's no flirty fishing in the family at present. I'm a full-time member, so I'd know that. Also, the people on stage are my parents.
Gideon and Rachel.
Gideon and Rachel
You're
Scott.
one of the 11.
I'm one of the 11.
Right.
So one would take it that as they're the national leaders, if there is brainwashing, they've had 20 years to work on me. They should have brainwashed me by now. I'm a member. I'm a member because of my own choice, not because of brainwashing. I've never heard of any parents that could convince their teenagers of anything.
If I was brainwashed, I would think it was my own choice, wouldn't I?
If we talk about Gideon's family, which we're now doing, Katie, his sister, has just left the group. And I hope she gets appropriate help. She certainly needs it. In addition, can I just say...
Just a moment. Why did your sister leave?
My sister left because she wants to do something else with her life. She's free, as I am, to
And
leave.
it wasn't difficult for her.
Well, how can it be if she's not brainwashed?
And you don't mind if she's left?
living with us at our house right now while she continues to make a decision. It's up to her. She's happy with it. We're
she
happy
made the
with whatever
decision?
she decides.
Well, she's basically decided she'd like to start doing something in America. So, I mean, it's up to her. We don't have any hold on her or anything like that.
You see, that is the other problem. As long as people can leave, then I don't think anybody's got any problem with it.
Our daughter,
Yes.
we support her in her decision. When I joined, I knew exactly what I was letting myself into. I was very glad to do it. I wanted to commit myself 100% to a life for Jesus in the same way as a vicar does, in the same way as a priest or a nun does. I have never regretted that decision.
But Sylvia, what would you say to that?
It's when the young people leave, they're totally unprepared for the real world. They do not have a full education by any stretch of the imagination. They do not have any qualifications that are acceptable by jobs. They're not prepared. They are also very naive, and they become the prey to the worst elements of the society. And a lot of young people that have left have had a really rough time because they do not know how to make decisions. Decisions have been made for them all their lives.
What I want to know is what this gentleman wants to say, because he's had his hand up for half an hour. Excuse me. Yes, sir.
The real danger of all these cults, blanket, is that they exploit the vulnerabilities of people, children and people that have had marriage breakdowns or financial difficulties, and they're at the worst time of their life. And the sad indictment on society is that the rest of us aren't here, church, state, whatever, families, to help those people when they need them. And they get caught into these terrible traps set by these people who are experts at mind control, at hypnosis. You may laugh, but the evidence is all there. You only have to see for yourself. You might not have experienced it, but there are 500 cults in Britain. There are probably 5,000 in America. That does say something for the way we're living in the Western world.
Well, from my point of view, the best way to approach religious groups or cults is with good information, and I would like to thank everyone here, whatever their view and whatever they've shared with us, for at least giving us the information to make our own choice. Thank you at home for joining us. Until next time, goodbye. Thank you.
Esther will be back in 2 weeks' time.